on behalf of the Institute for Leadership and Strategic Foresight. Welcome to So You Want to Be the Chief, a podcast for leaders.
It's always a pleasure to connect with people that you've known from a past life, if you will, some years back. I've got Chief Master Sergeant Adrian Garcia with me on the show today. He was a first sergeant at the Air Force Academy some years back. And as I explained to him a few minutes ago, I told him when I first met him, you hang with the chief and you'll get promoted. And he, in fact, did and finally made chief. And congratulations on that, chief. I don't know. When did you put it on? It's been a while, not that long.
So I put it on about a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I made it 2 cycles back, and it took me about 6 months to put it on. And I've had it on for a year.
Yeah. And as I said, you were assured at the time. You moved on from that back into your career field, which was what? I never knew that.
Vehicle management.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know, it's interesting because I always wanted to be the chief at, we used to call it Mopool. I don't know if that's still a term or not, because I thought, wow, what a challenge, man, because that's like probably one of the toughest jobs. Being a cop is probably pretty tough too, but one of the toughest jobs because everybody depends on you guys. But no one really gives you any accolades, I don't think, or enough, at least in my experience, for the work that you do. But man, when you're not there or something happens, boy, things go bad fast.
Yes, absolutely.
As I was growing up, one of my chief mentors told me, if you want to be a chief, you got to be willing to get your butt chewed at least once a week. I figure that you probably in that job, Adrian, do get your butt chewed plenty often.
Oh, people try. I get some phone calls from time to time. It makes it a lot easier when you can explain and just kind of break it down how the vehicle maintenance process works. Deployed is a really hard thing because everybody wants their vehicles and everybody, hey, I'm 06 so-and-so, I deserve a vehicle. And it's just like, that's just not how it works, right? So it's a lot of explaining on vehicle procurement and who gets a vehicle and why.
Yeah. And probably not a lot of understanding.
No.
Like you say, that 06 says, I don't care about the rules. I'm an 06 and I'm not the chief. I'm the 06 and, well, get over it, sir, ma'am. So is that your original career field then? Did you come in?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. So I've been vehicle maintenance my whole career, save for the almost 6 years that I was a first sergeant.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. Now, why? Was it one of those gigs that, you took the ASVAB and you got so many points or whatever, and the recruiter said, hey, I got a job for you, man. You're going to love it. And you became
so I've always been fascinated with cars. So my stepdad was actually a mechanic for the city, and he had been in the Navy and he was a mechanic. So when it came time to enlist, it was one of those things. It was the top on my job. I knew I wanted to work with my hands. So they didn't have any openings, but I told my recruiter, well, that's my first pick. And naive me, I went open mechanical, not knowing what that meant. I just, hey, I want to work with my hands. So luckily I didn't get crew chief. I got my first pick. So I didn't know until basic that I was going to be a mechanic. And I just loved it. I deployed as a mechanic. I did probably 5 deployments before I became a shirt. It was just an awesome job, and serving airmen just became something I wanted to do. So the first sergeant thing just came naturally.
Yeah. And like I say, I always wanted to do that job, but having seen some of it, especially as a senior enlisted advisor, and it always seemed like you just said, an opportunity. And my thing is air power, HEIR power, to create air power, because those youngsters, like I said, anytime I was with them or worked with them or they worked with me, whatever, it was like, man, these guys know what they're doing. And they were so humble and courteous and just professional as could be, and sometimes you wonder, where did these youngsters come from, man? Because everybody else is giving me crap, and these guys are just doing what I need to get done, So kudos to all of your guys. Now, how many do you have? Is it a squadron or a group, or how many? How does that work out for you?
No, so this is probably the largest flight in PACAF. So I'm a flight chief, but I have 130 airmen under me.
Wow.
Well, about 120 airmen, about 30 civilians.
Yeah. And you're stationed in Alaska, where at
yes,
Elmendorf?
Joint Base. Yes. Yeah,
okay.
JBER.
Okay. I'm sure I've been there a couple of times en route to the Pacific, and I never saw any of it because it was dark. And I don't know whether that was because it was spring or summer or whatever, or it was just night, whatever. But we would stop there for refueling and then get it to Clark, going to Clark Air Force Base or Air Base at the time, long time ago. But and I'll tell you what, it's interesting because most of us have a perception that Alaska is like frozen tundra, but it's not, is it?
No, we're just spinning into summer, and it's absolutely beautiful here. I mean, so we have daylight. So right now, I think it gets dark around midnight for a couple hours. So that coupled with the rain, everything's green. It just in about a couple weeks of spring, it's just green and beautiful, and it's amazing. Everybody comes TDY here in the summer.
Yeah, wow, that's interesting. Well, let's get to the topic at hand, Chief, and that is about what does it take to be a good chief. Now, you don't have a lot of experience doing it, but I know you have a lot of experience watching chiefs, because I know some of the positions that you've served in. What do you think is most important to becoming a chief, to being a chief?
I mean, so I think it's twofold, right? You're talking about the mission and you're talking about people. I think when it comes to people, my big things are, one, empathy. You have to empathize, and it's a little bit harder. Being in a long time, you kind of get that hard shell over you, and maybe a little bit more focus on the mission. But empathy is huge. I think being able to, even with the lowest airmen, kind of just remember what they're going through and know that they got other things going on, and at the end of the day, they chose to serve their country, right? So kind of, regardless if they have shortcomings or maybe they're just not performing as well as you think, just knowing that they raised their hand and they made that commitment, and they might have other things going on. So I think that's a big one. And then I think when it comes to getting the mission done, I am a very big advocate in standards. I think that if you make standards non-negotiable on your team, it might sound funny, but I think it breeds morale. I think that if you're a part of a team that doesn't compromise, that makes you feel good, and when you don't compromise and you're doing your job and that's rewarded, I think that makes for some job satisfaction.
As you speak about empathy in particular, and this is, to some degree, it's empathy. Sometimes it's just understanding, which is the essence of empathy anyway. But my daughter, who just got a new job just a couple of weeks ago, is I'll say she's struggling because she has to negotiate this. Her boss doesn't know anywhere near as much as my daughter does. She's in the children development business, and Tessa's been doing it for years, 25 years. And this young lady who was the boss just started doing it, and Tessa gets frustrated when the boss tells her to do something and she knows how to do it and does it, but then takes over. And a lot of times, as you know, Chief, it's easier for me to do it because I've done it. I know how to do it. Just let me do it. But as a boss, that's not a very smart thing to do because I don't know enough. And, we talk about empowerment. Well, the key, I think, to empowerment is let them do it. So I can imagine what you're saying about getting to be and you're not even close to being a crusty old chief yet. But it's sometimes when and I don't think you'll ever become one, but if you get to that point, you're I think that's when you know you're getting there, when you just take over. Here, let me do it. Well, there's no learning in that, Chief. Maybe you do know it and you do it the old way, which may not be the right way because there's new techniques and all that. But I think you're right. It's important that we learn from the youngsters, understand where they're coming from, and let them fly, man. Because every one of those, and we were at the academy together. All those youngsters that are now, I'll rank you as of last week, 3 or 4 days ago, which is kind of interesting. But
Yeah.
but they're not going to learn how to be who they need to be without us helping them and letting them go.
100%. Yeah, when I took my diamond off, I came back to the career field after 6 years, and a lot had happened in my career field. And my first stand up with my flight, I just told them, like, I don't know how to be a mechanic. I know how you could be a mechanic, 6 years ago, but that's not why I'm here. I'm not here to do your job. I can't do my job without you. And I'm going to let you do your job. I'm going to let you fail in certain aspects. I'm here to provide top cover and mentorship and guidance and leadership. I'm not here to turn wrenches. That's your job, right? And I think if we can provide that and let people do it their way and let them figure out, oh, that's probably not the best way to do it, or there's a better way, and not instill that fear of failure and just kind of let them do their thing, without detriment to the mission. I think that's the best learning environment we can provide.
And one of the smartest questions I think that we neglect to ask is, how much do you know?
Yeah.
Because we assume, and I'm assuming that we still have the 3-level, 5-level, 7-level
Yes.
system, which as they progress, we assume that they know certain things because they're supposed to pass those tests and all that kind of stuff. But in my experience, Chief, when you ask them, what do you know? Sometimes they amaze you that they know way more than a 5-level. They're working on a 5-level, but they've got 9-level experience, coming in a little bit later or having done this already, that we back in the day, well, it took me a while to get to that point. Well, they're doing it already, and probably on one of those thumb games, those.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. We had a brand new airman. She just came probably about 2 months from another base. She's been in the Air Force for about a year, working on her 5-level. And if you weren't, in depth or intrusive enough to ask the question, what do you know? You wouldn't know that this female mechanic went to a vocational school before she even joined the Air Force. Mm-hmm. Probably knows a lot more than most of the staff sergeants running around here, right? So yeah. Being intrusive is not an ugly thing, right? Like, it's digging down and, hey, asking them. And then on the flip side of that is being humble enough to say, well, I don't know this, or, hey, I don't know how to work on snow brooms because I'm coming from Shaw and we don't have snow brooms.
Yeah.
Right. So, things like that. I think it's a two-way street, right?
Well, and it's a mutual thing, right? Because if as you ask that question, you develop trust. Yep. The chief cares enough to ask me, do I know anything or do I not know anything? And then you can always, and it used to bug me a lot, Chief. I'd go into a shop and they have especially mechanic type people, like the folks that you lead, would have a set of tools over on one side of the bay and a different set on the other side. And I'd ask them, so why are those over there? Well, those are the tools that the Air Force supplies. And what are those over there? Well, those are the ones that I bought because they're a lot better. And I'm thinking, that's a shame, man. We ought to give them the best that we can possibly give them. Yeah, we have budgets and all that kind of stuff, but as a chief, you can go find the better ones so that they can do the job better. Where it's, what is it, the same, there's a term for a tool that's suitable
substitute.
So yeah. No, that's junk.
Yes. No, it is. And all it takes is, I was at Shaw and my commander was walking through my bay and we had a previous mechanic, but he's an airman now, right? So he had worked at a car dealership, and the commander, as all commanders do when they're talking to airmen, is there anything I can do for you? And my airman, given to his credit, he put it eloquently. He was like, well, sir, this toolbox I've been given to work out with, I wouldn't be able in the civilian sector to make a living with this toolbox. Do I have to work with this toolbox? And my commander found some unfunded money, and our shop got like 12 new toolboxes. So it's the commanders are willing to do it, and I think leadership is willing to do it. And I think a lot of times we're not that close to the front line, and we just need somebody to speak up and say, hey, this isn't adequate. Because my job is to organize, train, and equip, right? Like equip. If you don't have what you need, I don't know that you don't like these screwdrivers, right? Like if you come up and say, Chief, these are crap, I need new screwdrivers, I'm going to get you new screwdrivers, right?
Yeah. And that's where I think your point about empathy comes in. Understanding that they're not just asking for it.
Yeah, they're not being ungrateful.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like you said, if you're not empathic enough to understand those things, or to try at least, then you're going to be that crusty old chief that I don't trust that guy, man, because you go ask him because, my hands are falling out, they're hurting from using those tools, and this chief doesn't care enough to help me get better, then that's unfortunate, and I hope it doesn't happen much, but I know that it does still happen sometimes. So now, how do you inspire people to do the mission, especially in your job, Chief? I mean, that's a tough job. I mean, you guys, you're like, are you on 24/7, or is someone working all the time? I mean, it's not like we stop the mission because the guys at the motor pool, they got to take a break, and we're not going to do anything for the next 24 hours. Oh yeah, sure.
No, we have a standby mechanic. In the winter, we do have 24/7 ops, only because clearing the runway and stuff like that. So we have different shifts and things like that. I think you got to like the job, and I think if you like the job, then my thing is to attach you to the mission. My big thing since I got here are our strategic location in Alaska. I think that when I went to chief orientation, the chief of staff said something that just kind of resonated. He's like, I need you to instill a sense of urgency in your airmen. So I kind of took that to heart, and I try to play at, we're war fighters, warrior ethos. We don't work at Walmart. We've raised our hand. We have a job to do, and I try to instill some pride in that. And I think if I do that and instill that sense of urgency, and hey, we're out here supporting Indo-PACOM, and China's a real threat, and I need you to be war fighters. I think if I can instill that just pride in being a war fighter and being in the Air Force, you like your job, that's fine, but you're a warrior, right? And I think if I can get to that, then they'll get the mission done, because they know that I'm not just fixing a truck, right? Like this is a tool for somebody to use to launch a jet, to protect America in the greater scheme of things. So I think if I can make that connection, the mission will get done.
Yeah. Now, do you take the time to explain those things, Chief? And the reason I ask is I was out at Whiteman several years ago, and man, I was freaking out with the bombers there, the B-2s, because what a mission, and it was wow. I was blown away just being there, and I got to get inside one and sit in the cockpit and all that stuff. And as I'm talking to the mechanics about him, about doing the maintenance and all that kind of stuff, and they're saying, yeah, whatever. What do you mean, whatever? Yeah, Chief, I come in, do my 12 hours or 8 hours or whatever, and I go home and all that stuff. This is not a big thing. You don't understand, man. This thing, and I don't know that all of them were that way, maybe that particular crew, but I'm thinking you got to connect what you do every day with like you just said, the mission of protecting the country, so that you can work 24 hours if you have to work, or whatever it is. Back in the day, and no kidding, when I first came in, just the first week I came into the Air Force, Chief, I got a finger stuck in my chest, excuse me, by Staff Sergeant Rick Rose, who told me to sweep the sidewalk or else he would kill me. And what? Man. I swept that sidewalk so clean. It was amazing. Nowadays, You can't even do that to begin with. But that would be stupid, you know. So anyway, my question was, do you take time? Do you know, talk to them and hang out with them and try to explain these things? They're bright, man. You know that they're incredibly bright.
They are, and so we have flight PT once a week. The sections, they PT, you know, a couple of times a week, but as a whole flight, we get together once a week, and I'll do PT with them. And at the end of PT, after we're done warming up, I usually, you know, highlight some world stuff that's going on. Ask if anybody knows, you know, basically, you know, hey, who wants to bring up something? And then I try to, hey, why is this important? Why do we care? Geographically, like, where are we sitting that this would affect us? And just try to hit home that, like, we're in the fight. The fight's happening soon. We are in a state of preparedness. We're not in a state of, you know, this isn't post-Desert Shield, Desert Storm to where, you know, we're fat and happy. We're coming off of, you know, a victory and doing a victory lap. We're preparing for war, right? And I try to just get that home to them. And our leadership across the wing does a great job of always just highlighting it. It's like, hey, we're not just going to go to war. We're in a location to where you're going to have to defend the base, right? Like, and they try to just, it's a common theme in time, every time a senior leader on this installation talks. So I would like to say, yes, we are getting those touch points. I would love it if we could have more. But I think there's a concerted effort to, like, get after it.
Yeah. How do the chiefs work? I don't know how many chiefs are on your base.
I just random guess. I would guess anywhere from 25 to 30. This is a pretty huge installation. It's a joint base.
Yeah. So, and you all work together, you know, and I've always said, in fact, in my book, I mentioned that you don't know everything. You can't possibly know everything, but to be effective, you need to know as many people as possible, because back in the day, it was a phone call. You know, I needed something that I couldn't get. I'd call another chief who either had it or knew someone who had it, and that's how we worked. Is that networking still important? Is it happening for you?
Yeah, I will tell you, we have a Chiefs group meeting, and it's about once a month that we get together. We do a social event or two. We go play volleyball with ALS. I was always taught that if a chief calls you, you stop what you're doing and you help that chief, because they're not just calling you for no reason, right? And I live by that, right? Like, if a chief from anywhere calls, as long as I'm not breaking the law, I will bend over backwards to support what they got going on. I don't know what their mission set is specifically, but I know if they're calling me, they need help with something.
Right. I would imagine you get plenty of calls.
I do.
Some of them probably stupid. Years ago, Chief, and I'm sitting at Ramstein late in the evening, about 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, and I get a phone call from this lady who says, "Chief, I need a soda machine." Okay, and I was in family support. Okay, but do you know who I am? You know, why are you asking me? And she says, because no one else will help me, and someone told me call you. And I said, well, you know, it's late. Let me see what I can do in the morning. By the next day, next afternoon, AFIS brought them a soda machine. She did Golden Flow, the pee in the bottle thing.
Okay, gotcha.
She needed drinks for people to, you know, generate all that stuff. And I'll tell you, every time I saw her, she almost bowed to me how great it was that I got her a soda machine. So I can imagine the Mopool guy and the Mopool chief getting plenty of phone calls, especially from that colonel that expects you to have a limo.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting, and just kind of like, you know, the same thing when I was a first sergeant. Like, it's amazing. We have this network and the red tape you can cut through to get stuff done, right? And you see an airman and comes in, he's like, "Shirt, I've been trying, you know, ABC to get paid," and you just see the frustration. I think that's where the empathy comes in, and you're just like, "Oh man, it's got to be frustrating for you." And you pick up the phone, you get it done in like, you know, 5 minutes, right? I think that's amazing. As senior NCOs and shirts and chiefs, I think that if we can, we should, right? I don't think we should be the gatekeepers just because, hey, an AFI reads like this, and I'm going to loosely interpret it to no, right? I think if we can get to yes and not break any rules, and then we can keep commander's intent, I think we should. Too often people just want to, shut their door or just be like, no, I can't help you. So,
well, another good question, I think, Chief, is if you could, how would you? And that gets you at least thinking, okay, this is how I would do it. Great. Go do it that way. Make it happen. And you're right, without doing something illegal, except the age guys. I think they're allowed to do illegal stuff without, because I always tell everybody, especially the brand new lieutenants, that get the age guys. They will do anything for you. Just don't ask them how they did it.
Yeah.
You have UCMG authority and you don't want to know. So what do you think? You're going to stay in for a little? How long have you been in altogether, Chief?
So I've been 21 and a half.
You got plenty of time. You're a baby.
Yeah, I do. So I have another 2 years before I can retire. This is the last assignment that I have to take. It just all depends on what the wife's doing, what my family's doing. I think I've served my country well.
Yeah.
And
it always depends on what the wife's doing.
Yes, and I think it's time to pivot to family, but still, I owe the Air Force some leadership, and I intend to make good on that. But I do believe in God. I have a good faith, and I think if I were to try to plan, anything after 6 months to a year, then there'd probably be some laughter and so I'm not naive enough to think that I can plan more than a year out. So I'm going to go until I feel I can't provide leadership.
Yeah. And you have your whole family there with you?
So I have my wife, my stepson, and my son lives in Florida. So he just came out here for winter and we had a good time. So it just all depends, but at some point you got to pivot to family, and I doubt that I'll ever be like crusty, cynical, mean chief. But if I ever catch a glimpse in that in the mirror, I'll know it's time to go.